table this.
We can adopt.
Ready to begin? Sandy?
We're live.
Okay, is Sandy,
Just go ahead and get started. She'll be.
okay. All right, well, we will go ahead and get started with the Bowling Green City Council Sustainability Committee meeting. Thank you to everybody for coming here tonight. Hope to start tonight's meeting with some remarks by Dr. Nick Hennessy, who is BGSU's Sustainability Manager. Dr. Hennessy has got pretty extensive experience working with the university to design and implement their climate action plan. And also, I believe, recently served on the City of Bowling Green's Sustainability Advisory Committee. Dr. Hennessy, please.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. Did I still talk through the mask? Or?
I think I'm new here. I'm not usually, I think we have to keep our masks on.
I
Okay,
make that
right?
decision.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
That's
it's
fine.
very directional, so you'll need to speak directly. And
Okay,
sorry.
no problem. So I want to tell you a little bit about our climate action plan and our experiences with it, and then maybe give you an opportunity to ask some questions as well, if that's appropriate. My position was created at BGSU in 2009. There had been interest in measuring our carbon footprint and launching a climate action plan on several fronts as early as my first year in the position. That had always been, something that was coming from different sources. I deal with faculty and students and staff. So pretty much on all those fronts, there was an interest in measuring our carbon footprint, as well as my own, of course, with an interest in sustainability. But I think it's fair to say there was a huge student interest, student support and interest. It was led primarily by the student business organization, not an environmental organization, a business organization by the name of Net Impact. That converged with the common reading for that year, which was No Impact Man, which has a sustainability theme to it, a carbon footprint measurement theme. Literally, by the time it was done, we had petitions from thousands of students wanting to go forward with measuring our carbon footprint and a climate action plan and joining what's called the President's Climate Commitment. So it was very student-driven throughout the whole process. President Mary Ellen Mazie at the time commissioned a working group to examine the benefits of becoming a President's Climate Commitment School. That's the organization that shepherds the universities, helps them with creating a climate action plan, helps them move forward with it, gives them resources and things like that. So we were very much, worked with the ACU PCC on that. If you sign on to that, you definitely are committing to a climate action plan and to carbon neutrality at some date, that you would include. So that was in the fall of 2011 that Dr. Mazie commissioned that working group. The committee included myself, also included the late Dr. Leontis as well, who served very energetically on that working group. They did a greenhouse gas analysis, a lot of other work, and ultimately recommended to the president that we go forward in the spring of 2012. This was something that she did have to get BOT approval for. So I don't remember which trustee meeting she pursued, but she did get board of trustee approval for us to join the President's Climate Commitment and signed us onto that in October of 2012 amid tremendous student acclaim, I would say. Immediately, we made some commitments joining that because you're going to be working on a climate action plan that's going to take you a while. So that process did require something immediate as well. So while we were working on the climate action plan, we did have to commit. It was a list of things you could commit to. You needed to pick 2 out of the 5. I think we went ahead and did all 5. So committing to LEED minimum silver for new construction and major renovation, which we did. Some student programming on waste reduction, Energy Star products when available, promoting the shuttle system and other forms of public transportation to reduce commuting emissions. Then the climate action plan was put together by pretty much the same committee and finalized in 2014, the first version of that. I should mention that climate action plans are fluid. They're always changing. Ours is anyway. They're fluid, they're flexible, they change often because you are in many ways aiming at a moving target. You see the target once every year and see how close you are to it, but you might need to change something drastically or partially depending on what happened that particular year. So we pledged carbon neutrality by the end of 2040. It seemed like a long time off then. Now it seems close, I guess, when I look at what we still have to do. So we have been progressing towards that goal. Our climate action plan is a collection of short and long-term projects and actions to both conserve energy, alter behaviors, and move towards renewable energy. Many of the projects have occurred, many have not. Some got added to the plan that weren't in it to begin with. But it's very much something to be looked at comprehensively because every operation, activity, and practice of the university contributes to our emissions bottom line. So everything is based on the 3 scopes of emission. You probably have figured that out by now, but scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Scope 1 is your stationary power, direct burning of fossil fuels on campus. So for us, it's our power plant, which burns natural gas, our vehicle fleet, and then fertilizer and refrigerants. Scope 2 is your purchased electricity, which we get from the City of Bowling Green municipal utilities. And then scope 3 is your mixed, your waste, your paper purchase, your directly financed air travel, commuting data, things of that sort. We do an annual measurement of our carbon footprint. I just finished that process in March. We use the SIMAP system. SIMAP stands for Sustainability Indicator Management and Analysis Platform. That's why they call it SIMAP. It's so long. It's a carbon accounting platform that can track and analyze your overall sustainability efforts. I input the data that I get from across campus. I get all the travel data from international programs, from athletics. I get all the energy data from Matt Rubel, in operations. We, estimate or do a survey to get our commuting standards, look at purchasing and see how much paper we bought. All of that stuff all together gets added together, put into this system, and then based on an algorithm that's included in that system, it provides you with a report of your CO2, tons of CO2 equivalent every year. So it's quite the fun experience, to put that in. But SIMAP, thank goodness for SIMAP. I don't know another school that doesn't use it. I don't know if there's something equivalent or similar that would be used by municipalities, but and I'm sure that's been done before. But SIMAP is a definite time saver, and it's very accurate as well in terms of being able to provide you with benchmarking data, totals, graphs, charts, reports, goals, all kinds of things to help you along in a resources. How are we doing? Our total emissions and metric tons of CO2 equivalent annually have gone down every year since we began measuring it. I think there might have been one little aberration one year, but arguably that's because of a change in how they were defining one of the categories. We have lost buildings. We have gained buildings. We have added AC to buildings that didn't have AC for 100 years. We have embraced LEED principles and LEED designations. We have gotten a greener profile from the city. Thank you, municipal utilities. We have reduced our waste from time to time. We have cut paper usage. We've done a lot of things that have helped us with that. Sometimes one scope goes up while another goes down. That's the whole thing about measuring everything. You can't just measure one thing. You have to measure all of it in order to know what your carbon footprint is, right? So overall, it's gone down. Maybe power usage went up, but our scope 3 went down or something, and helps us out that. So in 2013, we started out with 113,421 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. Last measurement for 2020 was 65,663.07. I will say that this past year is maybe a little bit of an aberration, because students left in late March and we basically shut down, and, we saved over $1 million in utilities. A lot of other things like that are unlikely to occur as extensively in the next fiscal year. I think most of our projects save money. Many of our projects save money as well as reduce carbon emissions. It's rather a tough standard that we meet for big projects. And the definition of sustainability, of course, includes an economic factor as well as an environmental factor and social factor. So things like external and internal LED lighting come to mind. which are huge economic boons. And in addition to that, they save us, they save us CO2 as well immediately as soon as you flip the switch, pay for themselves rather readily. Things like surplus reuse, fleet reduction and fuel efficiency, building energy conservation measures, central chiller plants, a lot of those projects that have come to fruition that are actually part of the plan. Maybe they didn't happen the year we thought they were going to happen, or we shuffle things around, but they happened nevertheless. So that's kind of where we are right now. What I had to offer, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has about our experience or anything that I can do to maybe help you with your journey.
Go ahead.
Well, Mr. Chair, I do have questions, but go ahead.
If you've got questions,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. Well, awesome. So thanks for being here, Nick.
You're welcome.
I am interested in hearing about the university's, I guess, process to actually create the plan. How was there a steering committee? How many individuals were on that committee?
There was a steering committee. It was roughly a subset of the initial working committee that the president created to decide whether we should even do it.
Mhm.
But it was many of the same people, like most committees at the university level, and especially a presidential committee. It's going to have students, faculty, and staff on it.
Okay.
So it had both graduate and undergraduate student representation, staff representation, and faculty representation. And it met for about a year, I guess, a working group to come up with a report, different sections and things. And then there were subcommittees as well, broken down: energy subcommittee, transportation, academics, education. I think there was 5 subcommittees in total that were smaller, that were kind of the powerhouses in terms of cranking out sections of the report, coming up with some specific proposed projects, short and long term, and then bringing in the people that needed to, be phased in and out of the working group, but not necessarily be on it all the time.
Okay.
So we would phase in, somebody who would come in and give us information about somebody from design and construction, maybe a project manager, maybe, who would talk about a particular project and things, but that person wouldn't come to every single meeting, but we did have Matt on there, Matt Rubel, because, the energy part was a huge, piece of the actual report. So
And that just allowed him to work on that piece.
yes.
So how many people, so the steering committee that overarched the whole process, how many people were on that?
Oh gosh.
Sorry.
Yeah,
You don't know
I'm
the
going to
thought.
say, I'm going to say probably 10 to 12,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, not something huge.
And then the subcommittee had significantly less than that.
Subcommittees were probably about 5, 6 apiece, half that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and many of us served on multiple subcommittees,
Sure.
so that was phased in and out of that. It's roughly the same thing that we have. I forgot to mention too that we also have an implementation committee.
Mhm.
Right now, Dr. Rogers created what's called the President's Council on Sustainability, or PCS. So PCS is basically the implementation arm of the Climate Action Plan. We realized that it wasn't gonna implement itself. That was a lesson learned, was that, it just kind of sat there in some ways. Just like you wouldn't want Amanda to have to be the person to implement the whole plan.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think it was a great idea to have my office implement the whole plan. Like,
Uh-huh.
I'm an office of one person. So that maybe slowed us down a little bit, I think, until we realized that a team implementation process was absolutely essential to prioritize moving forward and what projects should be happen next and where we would seek funding, a
Mhm.
lot of things like that. So Dr. Rogers jumped on that and created the PCS with subcommittees also. So it mirrors all the sections of the Climate Action Plan that I mentioned before.
Okay. When was that implementation team started? Just recently? If it was
He
President
created
Rogers?
PCS right before the pandemic.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so then I'm also interested, and then I'll stop asking questions. When y'all are measuring emissions, like that is very much an estimate, right? You're not getting totally I mean, how would you describe that?
It's pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate. Okay.
Yeah. To the
Did you
tenth
have to
that-
use
I
consultants
mean,
to do that work initially, or is that always something that you've done?
Well, SciMap is the system that does that for you,
Okay.
right? So when this group when the committee first got together and they did kind of like a rough estimate, that probably was a little bit more, or a little bit less accurate. It wasn't complete. I'm not sure they even did all 3 scopes, but they definitely made an attempt at measurement and realized we can benefit from this. We need this plan. We want this plan. The student body wants us to pursue this. We can save money. We can do the right thing for the environment. We can do this. And then we discovered SciMap was really just kind of in its formative stages, and then we hopped on SciMap and realized we would never want to do it without that, just because there's many online calculators you can use for I'm sure Amanda's aware of those, and you plug in the data, like I would plug in, kilowatts of electricity utilized, show the profile of the electricity. I would show, types of paper content and in the amount that was, purchased, all things about travel, commuting data, how much gasoline and other fuels did you use? These are all like finite pieces of data, right? They're hard numbers. I mean, you're not making that up. And that when athletics gives you data, that shows here's where the teams traveled, and this is how much gas we used, or this was our airfare and the cost and the destinations. I mean, and all that stuff. If you had to take all that stuff yourself and make all the determinations of the CO2 emissions that were generated from those, you would be working on it a real long time. But the algorithms and such that are worked into the SciMap system do that for you. So that I get into a section on SciMap and I input all of the data that have been shared with me across campus, so that the bigger challenge is really getting the data from the different areas and making sure that they get it to me on a timely basis. That's, much more so than making the calculations and coming up with a report.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you for coming and speaking today, and for your involvement in the city, especially helping us kind of walk through some of these steps that the university has taken. I think that most of my questions have been addressed. I guess more just an observation. You mentioned that this was student-driven. I think that that's a really important thing for us to note. This is something that a lot of young people in particular are paying attention to, which ties in very closely with our city's economic future. So I do think there are, in addition to the environmental benefits, I think the city could really stand to benefit economically from pursuing the formation of a climate action plan. I think that Rachel covered a lot of the questions I wanted to ask. I guess the other issue that I don't think you've touched on yet, or maybe only did briefly, was land use. I don't remember if it was BGSU's climate action plan. I've read several of these over the weekend. Do you guys touch on land use and the actual physical space that the university is taking up as you looked at how to reduce your emissions? You mentioned transportation, which is obviously a part of that.
I think that there's no specific category on, well, certainly a standing figure is your gross square footage. I mean, that's something that gets put into the formula, into the algorithm. So that's something that we need to keep updated every year. I mean, it asks you for your, I believe it's gross square footage. But there's different categories of labs versus classroom square footage and some different things like that that break down, and I'm sure that are part of the algorithm. But by and large, what that building is generating in terms of a carbon footprint is something that's going to be represented by other data that you get. So
Right. Okay, well, thank you very much again, and I look forward to talking with you more in the very near future.
Thank you. Good luck.
I guess I'm leading the show
chair.
here. Yeah. So the next item we had on our agenda was the Sustainability Advisory Committee report that was released on Friday, along with a memo covering some of the top line issues. I imagine we would want to at least touch on that. I know that we haven't had a lot of time to review it completely. I did want to thank the members of the administration for getting that out to us on Friday. I'm sure knowing that we were meeting tonight and it was going to be a topic of discussion. I thought that, particularly in the mayor's memo here, kind of the summary points that were provided, I think that there are a lot of great, not only ideas for things we can do in the future, but things that we're already doing. 40% of our energy from renewable sources is certainly something to be proud of. We've got 400 acres of parkland here in the city. Our recycling and food waste composting, obviously, at a time when other cities are scaling those back, we've actually been able to expand those, which I think is very important. And based on the recommendations, it looks like we're going to continue to look at ways to accomplish that, which I think is very important. Rachel, did you have anything to add on the advisory committee's report?
Well, the advisory committee's report was 39-ish pages. I mean, I would love for either their chair or maybe Amanda or Joe or someone from the administration to come back and talk to us about that at some point. I mean, there's tons of good stuff in there. It's as far as how it relates to the climate action plan resolution. I think that it will prove super helpful in creating a climate action plan, in that it, really surveys everything we've done in the city on sustainability to date, and then provides a couple ideas for moving forward. I mean, the way that it will differ from our forward-looking climate action plan is that our climate action plan is going to, set goals, create a timeline, quantify costs, and then specify accountability measures, among other things. But I'm so grateful for the work that was done, and I think it'll really, allow us to move forward on a climate action plan more quickly.
I think it provides a very strong foundation for us to build on, certainly. Any other comments on the advisory committee report?
No.
Okay, turning to the climate action plan resolution, and I guess before that, just wanted to note that this was a strategic goal of City Council, February 2020 at your strategic planning meeting. The stated goal was passing a resolution committing to the development of a climate action plan. We do have a draft of that resolution here. And, reading through this resolution, I guess I think it's also important to note that through the work of the advisory committee and some of the goals outlined in that report, it looks like a lot of these things we have actually already started to move on, which is great. So I guess now the next step, or the step that we are at, would be passing the resolution. So any discussion on the resolution we have in front of us?
I think that this is ready to go to Council of the Whole. I'm, very comfortable with this draft. I'm excited to see what our colleagues on council think.
I would agree with that. And I'm guessing since you drafted it, you don't have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, well,
No.
that's pretty straightforward to me as well. So I guess we will make a motion to send it to the full council.
Yeah, sure. I move that we send the climate action plan resolution to council, the entire council.
I will second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. I think that concludes the meeting of the Sustainability Committee. And I appreciate everybody for coming.